about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So when I waited tables, it would be interesting when I would, as I waited tables, I would offer a side salad, or I would ask them what vegetable they want on their plate. And every now and then you would have a meat and potato type of guy going, my wife's going to kill me if I don't eat a vegetable. So just bring some butter on the side. Okay. So they got their vegetable in there, lathered it with butter, and they hopefully satisfied their 5 to 9 fruits and vegetables a day you're supposed to eat. And no, they didn't. No, they didn't. And so one epidemic we have in America, which doesn't get talked about, but we need to and have an honest conversation about it, is people don't eat vegetables. I get it. They're expensive. There's recalls every now and then. They're not very tasty. It takes some finesse to cook. And so when you really start to look into what people are eating, and we talked about this, they're eating a lot of fake food, processed foods and frozen foods and fast food. We find out that their diet is really, really lacking. And we wonder why there's so much diabetes, there's so much obesity, there's so much early death, heart disease, stroke, dementia. And so I've had patients who were very honest saying, Doc, I don't like vegetables. Maybe I could slather them up in cheese. I could maybe get like broccoli au gratin or whatever. And maybe I could get a couple peas into my rice pilaf dish, but no. Cilantro has, luckily, now that we're adding a little bit more cilantro and salsa and stuff, that might be a way to get some more vegetables in us. But we still have people where they're, maybe the lettuce and tomato on their burger is all they're getting that day. Not adequate. If you don't get your vegetables in, you're not getting your nutrients. You're not getting your fiber. You're not getting full. You don't get full on bread. So we need to figure out how to do that. Now, McDonald's, I think, is ending their vegetable. Don't they have like a veggie burger? I don't know. I had the Impossible Whopper. It didn't taste bad. But I just kept telling myself, there's chemicals. This isn't, just eat the flipping vegetable. But I think McDonald's is going to, in America, stop selling their meat-free beef burger. And unfortunately, some people are using meat-free made artificially products as their vegetable source. So this is what we need to do, okay? Number one is no cheese. Cut the cheese. Cut the cheese. Cut the butter. None of that. What you need to do is if you take a vitamin every day, what you need is your little baggie or your handful or your veggies, just to start the day. It's going to help you with your energy. It's going to help you with your fiber. But you have to look at your vegetables not as a choice, but as you're taking your vitamins. Now, we've even weenified vitamins by allowing people to do gummies. I can't stand swallowing pills. I just don't like the taste of pills. I don't like swallowing vitamins. But you show me some gummy vitamins, I'll eat them. Are you really getting your nutrition from them? And as I said with that study last week, I've said this over and over again on this show, vitamins don't really help with our longevity. So you need to look at your bag of spinach or your carrot sticks or your heads of broccoli or your sticks of asparagus or your celery sticks as just something you have to do. If you stick your toothbrush in your mouth to brush your teeth, which, by the way, you should be doing also, at least twice a day, I recommend after every meal, you can very easily stick a piece of celery in your mouth. You can very easily stick a piece of broccoli. Now, I get it. All right. There are vegetables out there that I wouldn't have my worst enemy put into their mouth. Some of these things are just absolutely disgusting. I get that. I'm with you. Okay. Yeah. Some of them are very disgusting tasting, but there are vegetables out there that do taste good. Okay. Or they are tolerable. You're going to have to quit being a weenie. If you want to live, you're going to have to put a little work. Some of us have no problem working out, pushing ourselves to the limit, painful workouts at the gym. But we're like, ooh, I don't want a Brussels sprout in me. You're going to have to figure out how to way to do it. Steamed, got to be careful with steaming your vegetables because, again, you could lose your nutritional value. If you could have them washed, clean, and raw, it's the best way to do it. I take a handful of spinach and I throw it in there. Popeye. Just do it. It's like jumping into a pool. You just got to do it. You got to suck it up. Carrot sticks. If you're hungry. And another way to do it also is, let's say you really want your meat. You really want your potatoes, or you really want your dessert. Okay. Did you eat your salad? Did you get your vegetable in? You are not allowed to go into the fridge or go to that treat or whatever you're doing until you ate your vegetables. Now, a lot of people go, well, 5 to 9 fruits and vegetables, I'll just do 95% fruit. You still need the vegetable component. If you eat 9 servings of fruits, you're taking in too much sugar. You got to get the vegetables. You can't bypass that. And yes, being healthy takes work. Now, some of you will say, Dr. Daliah, I haven't done it yet, so it's too late. It's never too late. Eating healthy shows immediate benefits. So suck it up. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, don't go away.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah and on Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show. All right, we have some breaking news. Joe Bonsall, member of the Oak Ridge Boys, has died at the age of 76. He passed away earlier today due to complications with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. He announced he would be retiring earlier this year from touring. Now, amazing how Oak Ridge Boys, still around, still touring, still vibrant. Unfortunately, sadly, they lost one of their members at the age of 76. He was a tenor vocalist for the group. He joined them back in 1973. 2015, he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. And seeing that it's heartbreaking. Also, looks like we have been told that NFL legend and Super Bowl winner Bernie Kosar has been battling Parkinson's and liver failure. We know him for at least 8 seasons with the Browns, but he retired back in 1996, had been struggling with injuries stemming from playing. He's currently 60 years old. He's only 60, but he has opened up about his health battles, saying an independent NFL doctor diagnosed him with Parkinson's. He told Cleveland Magazine that his body gave out during an appearance for the Browns at their December 28th matchup against the New York Jets. He said, I really felt like I wasn't going to make it home from the Jets game, but he sucked it up. And then he avoided doctors until the new year. Then he ended up getting a massive blood transfusion. Well, his hemoglobin levels were really low. And so he was informed by doctors in January that he may need a new liver. And one of his medics says now he has a 90% chance that he needs a transplant. So he was here in I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, but he was in Las Vegas, I guess, for Super Bowl a few months back. But sadly, his condition worsened. And so, as he's fighting liver disease, as he's fighting, Parkinson's, not easy. And so, we wish him well, and we hope that, Godspeed. I know it's not, it's not easy. These athletes, these football players especially, seem to be afflicted a lot more with these neurological issues. We've had a slew of people suffering either from AML or, Parkinson's or CTE. And so, unfortunately, injuries can help precipitate. My grandfather was a football player when they used to call them leatherheads, where I remember his football picture where he just had the leather skin on his head and not, just the cap and not necessarily all the gear. And he suffered from, I believe, CTE because he had, outbursts, was very grumpy, was very depressed, a lot of mood swings. And I think that was because, I think it was a lineman. But also, I remember him having gout. And he would get these gout attacks in the joints that he injured during football. And so oftentimes where you have an injury or where you have a weakness is where the body likes to flare things up. And you know how when I was a kid, I told you guys I would call people lungers or throaters or stomachers when I was really little. And I had concluded as a kid that, whenever my brother got sick, it always hit his lungs. Whenever my sister got sick, it always manifested in a headache or migraine. Whenever I got sick, it would always be a sore throat. No matter what, anytime I got sick, it would be a sore throat. And so sometimes with our body, you could have the same bacteria thrown into a room. But in some individuals, like let's say strep pneumonia, some people get pneumonia. Some people may get an ear infection. Some people may get another type of infection. Same bacteria. So, our vulnerabilities can sometimes be the source of where pathology hits and accelerates. And so if you do have a vulnerable body part, make sure you talk to your medical provider about that and be on the lookout. If you've had previous head injury, we need to be aware and we need to watch you for early signs of dementia and Alzheimer's. I mean, obviously Biden's medical team might not run the test, but hopefully your doctor runs the tests. and any joints that you hurt. People always ask, should I fix the joint? I tore some cartilage. Should I have the surgery? Well, it depends. Are you functioning well? Do you have any pain? If you're limping and you're always babying that side, well, now that's going to mess up your whole dynamics and your whole mechanics of your other joints. But I've torn some cartilage and I still move fine. I still move pretty freely. When I'm in humidity, it hurts. But I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, where the humidity is pretty low most of the time. So I don't have pain, thank God. So I'm waiting. And speaking of which, acute knee pain. I've been having a few patients call with that. One was moving some furniture and then all of a sudden felt a pop. I've had other people where all of a sudden they just wake up and they have severe swelling. So it depends on what you have. If you are prone to gout, you could get gout attacks in the knee, which is a precipitation of these uric acid crystals. Waking up with acute pain and swelling where you don't even want to put pants on, it hurts so much, that would make me think of gout as opposed to an athletic injury or orthopedic injury that happened in your sleep. Orthopedic injuries could happen in your sleep, depending on how rough you are when you sleep, but I would be thinking gout. But for those of you that are active when you hear the pop, what is that pop? Well, it could be a tear of the meniscus. It could be a tear of the ligaments. It could be the sound of bone on bone. But it means that something in your anatomy that was there originally isn't. You could have also popped your tendon, where your tendon that could be inserting around the knee popped. Usually with something like that, you're in pain and your movement is limited. And the mistake I see people make is they're like, you know what? I'll just throw some dirt on it. It'll get better. And days go by, weeks go by, and they're not better. Well, if you tore something, it might not heal on its own. We may be able to work with some fraying of our meniscus and some partial tears, and we may still be able to function okay. But a major injury to a joint, you're not going to walk well, and you're going to be disabled. You can't do that. You need to be able to run if there's a shooter. You need to be able to, get out of a car that spontaneously combusts because of the lithium battery. You need to be able to move. And so whenever you do injure your knee, we always bring up rice or any other joint. Rice, right? Rest, ice, compression, elevation. When you do use ice, make sure you're protecting the skin. I've seen people frostbite themselves with it. Rest means don't be walking on it or running on it. If it hurts, listen to your body. C for compression, sometimes an ACE wrap or a brace. Don't go and buy a brace on Amazon without a medical provider telling you which brace. You could be buying the wrong one. And then E for elevation because it helps with the swelling. Why are you swelling? Well, because the body doesn't want you to use the joint. So it rushes all this fluid to the joint to stiffen it up so you don't use it to protect it. Now, sometimes we get a flare-up of arthritis. And there may be some humidity. We may have overused it. So sometimes we could control it in a couple days. But if you hear a pop or there was an acute injury, for the love of the Lord, get it looked at. And I really think a lot of us should be consulting orthopedic physicians or physical medicine physicians who can just make sure our joints are doing the right thing, or chiropractors, because oftentimes we let things go. And when we let things go, that can also precipitate more arthritis. We take care of our teeth. We take care of our skin. Why aren't we taking care of our joints? Why aren't we taking care of our muscles? Are you stretching every day? Are you doing yoga? Are you doing warm-ups before you work out? I know. I've done this too, where I only had X amount of time to work out, so I'm not going to blow 5 or 10 minutes on the stretching and the warm-up. I'm going to just go and start running. But still, you still have to stretch, because if you don't, you injure your muscles. So everything is mechanics. Our body's like a car. If your tire is not working right or your alignment is off, it just messes up everything. So take very seriously orthopedic injuries, my recommendation is when in doubt, check it out. And any sort of acute ankle, hand, wrist, shoulder pain, you could try the rice if it is applicable, but very hard to elevate your shoulder, because it's your shoulder. But you have a joint that's swelling, you elevate it. You elevate it to a level higher than your heart. Just sticking it on a footstool or resting it on the dog's tushy, not enough. Even though my dog likes to stick her tushy up, it's still not enough. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So tampons. We need to talk about tampons because apparently some toxic metals have been found in multiple brands. Now, this isn't earth-shattering breaking news. Right? The whole concept of a tampon is intriguing. We think that we are putting something in to our bodies for an extended period of time that is supposed to absorb a waterfall of fluid. And we think it's just natural cotton. No. In order for these feminine hygiene products to be absorbent, they oftentimes have other substances in them. Now, we used to refer to a period as, excuse me, and not a very politically correct term, but we used to refer to periods as being on the rag. I remember in the 80s, my friends were like, "Are you on the rag?" I was like, where does that come from? Well, because in the olden days, you would need a rag. And you would put a rag in there. You couldn't use a pail. They didn't have feminine hygiene products. Those later came out. I think in the late early 1900s, there's a history to them that I remember I spoke about it. I just can't think of all the ins and outs with that. But eventually it went from outer protection to inner. And if I ever did perform in the Olympics, which I always thought I would eventually be either a gymnast or a figure skater in the Olympics, we all kind of fantasize about what Olympian we would be. I would be a gymnast. Not as good as Simone Biles, but I'd be up there. And of course, I win gold medals every time I up there and singing the Star Spangled Banner and all. But would be very, very difficult to do with the big maxi pad. So tampons have been used ubiquitously by athletes, by people who don't want necessarily external, tactile reminders of menstruating. Well, this is a very interesting study. This study was published in Environment International, and a team of researchers from the United States found the presence of multiple metals in tampons. The study looked at 30 tampons from 18 product lines, 14 brands, and they looked for 16 metals or metalloids, and then compared the metal concentrations based on tampon characteristics. Now, about 50% of the global population are menstruating, and a good percentage of them choose tampons, anywhere from 52% to 86%, according to newsmedical.net. And so what the study decided to do was look at arsenic, barium, calcium, cadmium, cobalt, chromium, copper, iron, mercury, manganese, nickel, lead, selenium, strontium. I don't want any strontium in my Lily. I'm sorry, okay? This is scary to me. Keep the strontium out of the Lily. Vanadium and zinc. Vanadium sounds venereal, doesn't it? I don't want vanadium in the Lily either. Especially arsenic. A total of 30 samples of 5 different absorbencies representing 18 product lines, different tampons produced by the same brand, 14 brands tested. And they looked at top selling ones, some belonging to very large retail chains. And they looked at the different types of absorbencies and some of the products that might have been made outside the U.S., etc. Regular absorbency, super, super plus, ultra. And they found this outer covering made of non-woven material to make the string attach, because you got to get the string, you got to be able to take it out. And they looked at all of these samples. In fact, the samples were acid digested in order to look at the concentrations of metals. Then they used plasma mass spectrometry. But then they had to use a little different method for the mercury. And then they found the presence of 16 metals in the assortment of all of them. Several toxic metals like cadmium, lead, arsenic were found in significant concentrations. Mercury and chromium, not as bad, but still there. Calcium and zinc were found also in higher concentrations. Now, the variability within the tampon was low, but it was high across different types. They say metal concentrations also varied considerably around the characteristics versus organic, non-organic, brand versus non-brand name. But none of the categories had consistently low concentrations. So if you're thinking, I'm going to use organic tampons, they still, apparently according to this study, could have the toxic metals. Now, lead can affect your neurological health, could affect your reproductive health, your renal health. And so the study is, there's, again, it's a wide range of tampons. I urge you to look at it. It's published in Environment International, and it's pretty long and lengthy. And there's a lot of pictures and things like that. Don't worry, I have to accept all the cookies. And I don't want to necessarily go into the brands, but they are pretty common brands. We need to then have a discussion on what is the safest thing to do. Now, when I was doing 36-hour shifts, right, back to back, being on call, you were on call every third day. So you go in at 4 or 5 in the morning to pre-round on your patients. You couldn't go home at 6 at night because you are on call that night. So then you didn't get to go home until the following 6 at night. And then the next day you were on call again. Very difficult when you have your period. Not easy. And so you also don't have time to change your clothes. So if you're doing an 8-hour commando procedure with your ENT attending and, you have to change, it's not easy. Sometimes you don't get to go to the bathroom at all. And that can be very, very problematic. Tampons can put you at risk for toxic shock syndrome, where the bacteria that can brew in there, because bacteria likes to settle on things that are not moving, that are stagnant, can be very dangerous. And so it could be a variety amount of time that you could be put at risk. So if you are going to be using any internal absorptive sort of hygienic, you need to remove it. Cups, things like that. You need to clean them out. You need to replace them. Pads have issues because they leak. I understand Always brought out the wings. Those wings sometimes don't help. And people's periods change. They change with their weight. They change with their hormones. What a lot of younger individuals now are doing is just not having the period. They're just not having the period. They're just taking birth control or types of birth control that stop it. The IUD stopped my period. It was kind of nice. Right now, the studies are showing that doesn't have dramatic effects in terms of health effects, but still, the reason why the period happens is it's also a cleansing mechanism too, and so there's definitely an evolutionary advantage to a period. It just, with the cramps, with the symptoms, with the burden of it, people are choosing to be periodless. I would like to see a lot of the data, in terms of fertility and things like that. But right now, they're saying you could resume your period and be able to get pregnant the next month without a problem. Period panties have started to become more popular. I'm still blown away by that. I want to try them, but I don't get my period anymore because I have my hysterectomy. So but I'm very interested in what that would be like. I think I would not do well. My mom said when I was a baby, I would remove my own diaper when it was wet. She didn't even have to check me because I didn't like it. I didn't like the feel of it. I'm like, dirty diaper, here you go. And so she would then have to come and she's like, could you have just waited, please? Because now you got the pebbles all over the place, right? Yeah, I just didn't like it. I feel it. And I potty trained early, she said. I was not having it. So, didn't speak perfect English, for a while, but I definitely potty trained easier. So for those of you using, these hygienic products, and remember we talked about period panties also having chemicals. In order to be wearing a pair of underwear that handles fluid, it's chemicals on there. So if you don't want to have arsenic and strontium and cadmium around the lily, you might want to, find other options. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, X, Dr. Daliah Show. Twitter's now X, and then Facebook, the Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. Okay, so earlier today, House Democrats were apparently meeting, and I think they are still discussing on Biden's future. And this is something that has caused a lot of chaos and caused a little bit of a disruption, especially with the NATO summit and the election coming up. And I don't think the Democrats are going to replace him. I don't think at the time. I think that move, it might sound amazing on paper. I know lot of Democrats like Gavin Newsom, like Michelle Obama, the practicality of it makes it a little bit more difficult. Remember, the Democrats are the anti-Trump party. They want to show stark differences between them and Trump. Trump does things pretty head on, pretty dramatically. Them this close to the Democratic National Convention, when the primaries showed a resounding win for Biden, for them to all of a sudden look like they're listening to the right, that Biden isn't equipped to run or continue to run, for them to just overhaul the whole primary process and overhaul and make a dramatic change doesn't go with the Democratic narrative of we're calm and we're steady and we're not Trump. So it's a little too dramatic for them. I understand Michelle Obama could be extremely, extremely popular, and I would not be surprised if she runs for office. But for them in so short a time to convince America that she could hold political office, let alone be commander-in-chief, still a tall order. I understand a lot of people are voting just to be anti-Trump or voting for Trump. And I get a lot of it might be more about, that we're loyal, but you do have a lot of individuals who are like, I really don't know what to do. I'm really torn. You'd think this late in the campaign, you'd have an idea, but I think some people are looking for a better candidate. But then is somebody who has never been in politics, as, First Lady, she did a lot of stuff, but, in terms of holding political office, able to all of a sudden be commander-in-chief. Still a little tough. And it's not a good look to sidestep Kamala Harris, who has been in the vice presidency now for almost 4 years. We understand Kamala Harris is not very popular, although in the latest, there's one poll that I think shows she would lead by a point over Trump, as opposed to Biden trailing multiple points. My guess is the Democrats are not going to want that drama. They are going to try to still push this whole, dementia rumor aside, Parkinson's rumor aside. They'll double down on Biden, but elevate Kamala in terms of her appearances. They need to give her a crash course on how to be presidential, because she doesn't do well in interviews and she has not a lot of experience, and she failed her primary. She wasn't very popular among the Democrats, especially as opposed to Biden in the primary. So they got to try. They're going to have to work on her. The Democrats have been spending so much effort trying to fight the rumors about Biden and his lack of doing anything at the border and all the other stuff that playing defense, they now have to go on offense and start elevating Kamala. As I've always said, I don't think Biden is going to want to leave office with his tail between his legs and people making fun of him, bedwetting or pooping in his pants, which I really don't think he's doing. I think that's going too far, but he is not going to want to end his legacy that way. So I think he is going to, if not this term, I thought it was going to be this term, but if they do prop him up to be able to get through to next term, he would want to leave his political career elevating, Kamala, giving us the first female president. He's going to want the credit for that. He's not going to want to lose an election, and he's not going to want to be kicked out by the Democratic Party. So I think what he's going to do is elevate her so he gets the credit. And then that could be the final paragraph in his Wikipedia page on his political career, that he was the one that gave us the first female president. So that's what I've always kind of predicted. But I don't think the House Democrats are in a position now where they have enough support and enough of a focus on a candidate. Gavin Newsom would probably be the most camera ready and ticket ready. But what's happened in California has not been very popular. California has a high homelessness, high crime, has migrants sleeping in the airport. It's not, California has her own struggles, and you have a lot of moderate Democrats that aren't very happy with what they've seen in other in other states. I'm from California. I was born there. I think California is one of the most amazing states. But yeah, politically, it's been tough. And that's why there's been a huge exodus. So Gavin Newsom is going to have to figure out how to look more moderate in terms of being able to, although he did step back on taking kids away from their parents if the parents didn't undergo the gender surgery and the transformation. I think he did put a stop on that bill, which concerned a lot of people, especially a lot of Democrats who, had kids who they might not have been ready for, gender affirming surgery. So that was a little bit more moderate from the Gavin Newsom side. But with Biden, as the problem we have is, one, he needs his health looked at. Two, his doctors need to be doing proper medicine, because we don't want the standard of care to change where people who are struggling don't get the cognitive testing and the MRIs that they need. But also, we cannot have that debacle that we saw on the golf course where he's wandering around while all the leaders are getting ready for a picture. People have to steer him. We can't have him looking confused. And I know the White House keeps saying, well, he wanted to wave to somebody, or he wanted to, when it's picture time. All the other presidents kind of know how to stand in line for pictures. I mean, Obama knew how to wave and then get in line for the picture. There's these kinds of things. Now, I have to admit, he has been performing a little better. Again, not as presidential, not as tough and bold as we would have expected and we need. But people always say, okay, well, the Democrats are going to replace him. They're not. There's a process. Not to mention the money. You have to follow the money. Right now, the coffers are in the Biden-Kamala PAC, super PAC. Now, there are some other Democratic super PACs that probably do allow a little bit more movement with the money. But right now, the money is for Biden-Kamala. So it's easier to keep going with Biden-Kamala or elevate Kamala than to try to convince everybody that the money and the primary now has to shift. You could have a huge revolt in the Democratic Party going, no, then we need to redo the primaries. I didn't want to vote for Gavin. I didn't want to vote for Pete Buttigieg. I wanted Biden. So you might have that it just could be too complicated. Not to mention, as I've said before, it admits defeat. The Republicans have been saying for years, there's a problem. He has a problem. Even moderate Democrats have been like, is he okay? For them to finally do something in the 11th hour, not a good look. And so, and it's tough because if they do messaging, saying this is our president, he can go on for another 4 years. They're in a bad position. It's not a good look. It's tough, but I just don't see it happening. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.